races formed together, made for elevation. I'm a soldier, won't surrender. Faith is like a fire that never burns to embers. The voice of the unheard. Love is the answer.
I gotta speak it, believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath when you pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. Can you hear me? Are you listening? Sleeping in the shadows could be making history. Through the fire, on the water, used to be a slave, but now you are a conqueror.
They can take my heart, they can take my breath when they pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. Up, 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 up. We're rising up, 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 up. Rising up, 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 up. We're rising up, 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 up. Rising up, 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 up. We're rising up, 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 up. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance. You can't resist us. This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. I gotta take myself off mute. Welcome everyone to another episode of Straight Talk with Joe Vollano. I am glad you are here. It is a beautiful day out there. It was hot though. I was down at the Puerto Rican Festival over at Hubbard Park most of the day, and I have to tell you, one, the food was absolutely amazing. If you did not go down there, throw us on speaker, jump in your car, and get on down there. It's going on until 8 o'clock tonight. They have great music. They have tremendous food. It's the first year I have gone. And I got to say, I absolutely loved it. I can't wait for it again next year. I stuffed myself, oh my God, with so much good food. Listen, it's a great crowd. Absolutely phenomenal music. Like I said, phenomenal food. So if you have not gotten down to Hubbard Park, you have an hour to do so. I will allow you to go ahead and throw us on speaker, put us on your phone, and you can get on down there. And it will be well worth your time. We have a lot of new people on the show tonight. And of course, we got a lot of people who will not make it tonight because obviously they're down at the festival working one way or another. But I am Joe Vollano. I am your host, your guiding light through all the craziness and nonsense going on in not only our city, our state, but yes, in our country, because it is complete chaos out there. And everything that we've been talking about over the last 5-6 months are all starting to come to fruition. Everything we were talking about with taxes, with rents. And I feel for you renters, but we talked about this 5 months, 6 months ago on what was going to happen when those reassessments and those taxes came to fruition. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that because, again, I always try to keep a close eye on social media. And my two favorite merited ones, at least,
Obviously, Meriden Talks, while it's not my favorite for information, it's my favorite for watching the people who just don't pay attention finally kind of realize and then sit there dumbfounded that crazy crap is happening in our city. And then they sit there and they're like, well, how did this happen? And it's because they're not informed, they're not paying attention, while it's so easy to pay attention in the digital age. So we'll talk about a little bit more about that also. And then, of course, my other one is Positively Meriden is my other favorite one because, again, that's, you get some good information out of there. And I like the fact that it is mostly just positive stuff happening in the city. And it's always good to make sure that you can balance it with the negative with the positive. So we'll do a little bit of that today because I saw a post on Positively Meriden that I did not know and I thought was actually pretty cool what Meriden actually still does. Actually, the Meriden Fire Department still does. We'll get into that later on. But again, I am Joe Vollano. I am your host, but this show only works best when you are involved in it. So if you want to call in, 203-679-9610. If you're a first-time viewer, by all means, feel free to call in about any issue you have going on or any issue you may want to know about. 203-679-9610. Of course, you could email us, straighttalkjv@gmail.com. And if you're on social media, if you're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, you can always join up on our message board. As I see, it is off and running. Lisa, welcome home from a nice vacation. I hope it was good. But we have a lot of business to attend to tonight. So let me throw our disclaimer up there. Obviously, things around us. We're running for state senate, so therefore we need to put this on there to keep the SEC off our ass. And that's always a good thing. When they're happy, I'm happy. So let's get you up to date, first of all, on what's going on with the Board of Ed. Because we have now had four. We now have four people coming forward. And let me break this down on how this is happening. Because it is important for me to protect the people coming forward. Let me just put that out there. My number one concern is the well-being of the people that give us information. Because I know that the leadership of the Board of Ed is desperately trying to find out who's giving us information on things, especially on these two things. One is the head custodian, the other one is the plumber. So let me just start with saying that. My number one concern is the well-being of the four people that have come forward so far to help us out. Because it's not to help us out. We're helping them. We're helping them stop the nonsense and stop the craziness that's going on in our Board of Ed system. So let's just leave it there. Now, obviously, we've been talking about this for a couple months now, since this all came to fruition. And for those of you who are new to the program, it was found out a couple months ago that we had two employees that were stealing time and supplies from the Board of Ed. And we're not talking about hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars. We're talking about tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And this all came to fruition when an outside firm, who is a supply house, sent the Board of Ed an inquiry on why a plumber for the city of Meriden Board of Ed was purchasing residential stuff on their account. That's how this all came to be. One person who sat there at a supply house and said, this doesn't look right. I better let somebody know. Now, once that happened, of course I found out. And if anyone in City Hall, if there's one person they don't want things to be found out by, it's they don't want me finding out. Because, of course, I went straight to City Hall and I asked questions. And again, we were told, do me a favor, just wait 2 weeks and we'll and then you can go public with this. And I graciously said, okay, just out of pure kindness and the fact that I like people. And of course, they backstabbed me. And they got their pensions. So, that being said, now that we know these, now again, none of this is disputed by anybody within the Board of Ed. These two events happened. A head custodian was stealing time. A plumber was doing residential repairs or plumbing jobs while on company time, on the Board of Ed time. That's not disputed by anybody. Now, how much was stolen as far as supplies and time is yet to be known. To me, whether it's $1 or $100,000, it doesn't matter. Now, what we also know is that the Board of Ed has not contacted the police department to do an investigation on this. And that's coming from the police department themselves. They are aware of what's going on, obviously, because we've been talking about it. So they're aware of what's going on. But there has been no ask of them to step in to investigate anything. Now, what we also know is that the Board of Ed has gone radio silence. After those 2 weeks ended and I came back to ask more questions, I was told this is a legal matter now, and the legal department has told us to stay quiet on this, on what's going on. Now, if that is indeed true, which from multiple people I have heard this from on the Board of Ed, I'm taking it that is true. The Board of Ed lawyers did tell them, hey, you all shut the hell up now. So now my question is, what are they doing? What is the legal department doing in the Board of Ed in regards to this situation? Nobody can give me that answer. The Board of Ed can simply give us an update on what's going on, and they refuse to do so. So like I said, we've had whistleblowers come forward and graciously give us information to help us kind of just unravel this absolute chaos that's going on here. Now, I have sent everything that I have gotten to the FBI. We talked about this last week. Now, just before I went on vacation, I sent all this stuff over to the FBI. The following day, I get a phone call from the FBI in New Haven just to go over everything I sent them. And we had a very good discussion. And here's where it stands, because I want to make sure everybody understands this. There are two ways to go about this. One is the easy way. And that is if these four individuals wanted to come public and state their name, exactly what happened. At least then the FBI has people within the organization which will be credible evidence to actually start an investigation. But again, they don't want to lose their jobs. And it has been made very clear to me by leadership in the Board of Ed that they are on the hunt for these people and they will lose their jobs. So their fears are justified. And again, my number one concern is for their jobs. Because listen, they got families, they got mortgages, they got all, they have to live too. So then there's the other way, and it's the hard way. Because the FBI is just not going to come in here and just start wildly checking things. They need some kind of strong proof that gives them a reasonable suspicion to come in here and look at certain things. And that's where my job is now. My job is to provide that for them. And I am working overtime to make sure I could put together a case here that we could bring to the FBI and say, listen, here is the evidence that you're looking for that will justify an investigation, that federal funds were being used in not appropriately. They were being misappropriated. That's what they care about. They don't care about city funds, and they really don't care about state funds, as that's not their jurisdiction, as it was told to me. They care about federal funds. Now, anyone who doesn't know, the Board of Education in the city of Meriden, between not only city and state funds, does get federal money. Therefore, this does fall under that. So my job now is to make sure that I could put together a case that shows that people knew what was going on and did nothing about it. That they knew money was being stolen and did nothing about it. That is where we're at right now. So, here is another long FOI request that I have put forward as of a couple days ago for more documents from the Board of Ed and the city and city employees. And let me go through these because I think it's very important to understand why I'm asking for the things I'm asking for. And I'm going to give some detail. I'm not going to give a lot of detail because I don't want to give them a heads up on exactly what I'm looking for. Because I've gotten more suggestions on where I should be looking. And so that's what we're going to do. And hopefully, I gotta say, the way the Board of Ed leadership is reacting to all this, I don't even think they're that more pissed at me anymore. I think they're really pissed. They're really pissed off that members of their own organization, employees of the Board of Ed, are coming forward saying, we're done with this shit. We're done. This is ridiculous. And things need to change. And it takes a lot of courage to do that. It really does. Because, you know, even when I was at the Daffodil, I was at the Puerto Rican Festival today. Even at the Puerto Rican Festival today. You know how many people turn around to me and said, well, nothing's going to change. No, you know, the politicians do nothing for the people. And you start to hear that over and over again. And I heard it at least 5 times today. That no one is going to do anything about this, or no one's going to take care of us. What you don't realize is that there are people like myself, and many others. I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. There are a lot of people out there that are willing to do what I'm doing to try to help not only our city and our state and our country hold our elected officials accountable, to hold leadership accountable to the people, because the people is where the power is. And I get it. You feel beat down and defeated. I get it. But that's how these politicians win. Because you don't come out and do your part. Help me help you. That's what I say. Let me help you. The dispatch center, prime example. Prime example, dispatch center. Those employees had enough. They had nowhere else to go. They came here. And we went on the attack for them. And not only me, but every one of you out there, rallied behind the dispatch center and said, enough is enough. And look what we got accomplished. It is a whole different world over there at the dispatch center. This t-shirt says it all. I had this t-shirt, Sean? I think this was like years ago we had these things made. I love the city of Meriden. I love the people of the city of Meriden. I despise the people that run this city. I know. It's tough to hear. I cannot stand it right now. And like I said, the Record Journal, oh, well, you're a partisan. Listen, Board of Ed is run by Republicans. When you're wrong, you're wrong. And everybody will be held accountable. Everybody should be held accountable, no matter what party you're on. Bob, well, I do love you, sir. Did you finally leave? Are you home now? Bob Williams is one of the committee members of the Puerto Rican Festival. Bob, perfect job, well done over there at the Puerto Rican Festival. Kudos to you and your whole team. I saw Mike. Listen, me and Mike Rohde might not get along and might not see things eye to eye, but listen, we're all humans, and I do care that his well-being. And it was nice when I pulled in. We had a nice conversation. Listen, he's a month out of a stroke. And he's there. He's there doing his part to make sure everyone's having a good time. So listen, Rhodey, kudos to you, buddy. Kudos to you. Oh, you're just a volunteer. Okay, well, you should be on the committee. They could use another one of you. So kudos to him. Of course, he told me I was parking up on the mountain, but I give credit where credit is due. Like I said, we'll never see eye to eye politically. Never going to happen in this lifetime, and we'll battle it to the death on that one. One of us will be dead before something happens, but that's just, we're never going to see eye to eye on it, and that's okay. But just as long as he's in good health, that's what matters. So what we found out so far, back to the original story here of the Board of Ed. So there's a couple of things that I have requested, and I had to re-request because, of course, if you're not very specific or if you're too vague, they will kick it right back because they don't listen. The city does not want to give you anything, especially if you're coming after them. So I'll give you a couple of things that I requested. Not all. I won't give you guys all of them, just because something I want to be left up to their imagination. I did request the superintendent's employment contracts for the last 5 years. Now, that's important to understand why. Listen, everybody's contract, whether it's a director, whether it's a superintendent, has very specific things in it. And there's little sub-paragraphs to a lot of the things that he may get in regards to stipends and to bonuses, or whatever it might be. So I am going to look at those because there may be some things in there that we may be able to grasp onto. So that was for the last 5 years. I requested those employment contracts, which again are open to the public, so there shouldn't be a hard issue getting them. Here's the one that I think they're really going to rack their brain around. So I requested copies of. So they have a program called School Dude, is the name of their program, and that's the program they use to create work orders and to assign work orders to different employees within the city. So I have requested School Dude work orders for a certain employee for the last 5 years. And that time frame is very important because I know for a fact that there are many work orders that are about a year to a year and a half old that are still open for a certain employee that are just now being done. So that means a school requests a service. They put in a request through the school dude. It gets put into the system. It gets assigned to a technician, plumber, or electrician, whatever it is. And then they go out, do it. They close out that ticket, and it's done. It's just a way of keeping track of things. Well, obviously, someone wasn't doing their job because there have been several tickets that have been on. Well, I would say several. I would say tens of tickets, maybe like 60 around there. Tickets that have been left open for about a year, year and a half that are just now getting done and are just now getting closed. So again, we're about accountability. Where were the supervisors for this? Where were the supervisors watching over this person? Now, of course, one of my first questions when I met with the Board of Ed the first time was, who is the supervisor of this employee? And I was told it was Steve Kogut. So if Steve Kogut is the supervisor of this employee, has he been held responsible for it, for what's going on? And I was told no. I said, okay, let me ask the employees. Who is your supervisor? Is it Steve Kogut? And many will tell you no, he's just a lead. And that they had a supervisor about 8-9 years ago that got fired for guess what? Stealing time and supplies. Starting to connect the dots here. So he was fired and no one ever replaced him. And that's when Steve Kogut was hired as a lead, not as a supervisor. So now, of course, my obviously next question was, well, who does everybody report to? And that is Dave Paul. So who is Dave Paul? I had to go look. He's director of facilities for the Board of Ed. So the new question is, has he been disciplined? Has he been reprimanded for anything that's gone on here? And apparently no. So I have to ask the Board of Ed. I have to ask the leadership. Why is no one being held responsible for this? If school dude is showing that tickets have been well over 6 months with no one touching them, is anybody looking at this? Was anybody looking at it? Was anyone questioning, hey, why are all these tickets still open? I would think that would fall under a director of facilities. Or if a lead is a supervisor, it would fall under him, under Steve Kogut. One of them has to be responsible for it. Somebody needs to be held accountable here. Now, don't get me wrong. These two individuals that actually perpetrated it need to be held responsible, but so does their supervisors. Because if they did know about it, it's criminal. If they didn't know about it and just weren't paying attention, that's incompetence. Either way, they should be gone. Either way. But it seems like it's business as usual over at the Board of Ed. Like I said, they got rid of the plumber And like I said, only in Meriden can you do this. Only in Meriden do you get rid of the plumber and then go hire the director's brother-in-law. Only in the city of friggin' Meriden does stuff like that happen. And then the Board of Education, the actual elected officials of the Board of Education, approved it. Approved it. Are you kidding me? You know, I used to sit there and bash on Jeff Cassette. Does anyone remember the time they found all those money and checks and stuff inside the desk at the records department of the police department? Does anybody remember that? And just happened that the records department was being run by the chief's brother, and nothing was done. Nothing was done. You know, I think they chalked it up to shit happens. Does anyone remember that? And then they go ahead and do the same thing all over again. Don't worry about it. No, nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Well, there's plenty to see here. And where there's smoke, there's fire. And the smoke is coming up. And it's getting thicker and thicker every single week. Eventually, it's going to catch fire like that. And I guarantee you, leadership of the Board of Ed will be trying to save their own ass. I guarantee it. Because there is no reason for the Board of Ed to be this quiet about what's going on. To be this hush-hush. Unless somebody either knew it was going on, was involved in it, or was incompetent about it. And I still think, deep down in my core, that this plumber was doing work to leadership's homes. I guarantee it. I know that's what's going to happen. I know it deep in my core. That's why everyone's being quiet about this, and everyone's just trying to sweep it under the rug. I guarantee when the FBI finally pulls his phone records and his data, his geo-tracking, I damn well believe that this is going to lead to somebody in the leadership of the Board of Ed. That's my hunch. And I tell you what, other than the mayor not running for state senate or state rep, I've been pretty damn dead on. I'll admit when I'm wrong. And Kevin Scarpati definitely threw me a curveball. Because I definitely thought he was. And I was wrong. And I'll admit when I'm wrong. But damn, I'm not wrong very often. And I definitely don't think I'm wrong here. The way they are acting and going after people definitely throws up red flags. Why are you working that hard to find out who's leaking? I think you'd be more concerned about what the hell happened and how do you fix it so it doesn't happen again. That's what I think you should be concerned about. But instead, you're searching cell phone records and everything else in between to try to find out who your leaks are. At the end of the day, I know it's going to come down to protecting your own asses. And I'm going to be the first person to sit there and say, nope. Goodbye. Have a nice day. If not, be watching you be held off to jail. Because that's technically where you belong. This is borderline criminal, the way the Board of Ed is acting now. And at some point, the truth will come out. The truth will come out. I think the first person that breaks their silence is the one that probably gets the deal. But I will find out what's going on. I don't care if I have to look through every record the Board of Ed has. Wow, it's a half hour already. Look at that. See how time flies on this damn thing? It gets me fired up. Gets me fired up. When you're trying to screw over the taxpayer and you're trying to screw over the citizens, oh, there is nothing that gets me more fired up. And then go out and then try to go after innocent people who are just trying to do the right thing. It's crazy to me. So, as I was talking about before, we'll have more on that next week. So, as I was talking about before, I like Meriden Talks. And Meriden Talks serves this purpose. It does. It has a purpose, believe it or not. Now, I don't usually post on there very often, other than obviously the show. I'll post it on there. But I do like to read. I do like to read to see what people are talking about or what people are bitching about. And because that's usually all that happens on Meriden Talks. It's a lot of bitching. But it's bitching from people who have the opportunity to stay informed. I mean, if you spent a little less time on the nonsense on the internet and actually about what's going on around you, I think you'd probably all be better off. So there was a post that caught my eye, and it was about a young lady going off on landlords in Meriden over the pricing of their apartments. And, and she said, this it's not worth it what they're asking for a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, this isn't Beverly Hills, this is Meriden. But what she fails to realize, and again, she's not the only one, so I don't want to make it seem like I'm picking on her. I'm not. Sweetheart, you're just one of thousands of people in this city that need to get off their asses, off the drama of Facebook, and pay attention to the world around you that affects you each and every day. And that is the governments that run your life. Because 6 months ago, we talked about the reassessments of not only single-family properties, but multi-family properties and apartment buildings and how they skyrocketed with the new assessment. And we did a whole half a show on the effects that this is going to have come July when these taxes take effect. Well, they have taken effect. And exactly what we predicted is exactly what's happening now. The city council did not care. Did not care. Well, let me rephrase that. The majority on the city council did not care about what your reassessment was. They were going to raise taxes one way or another because they had things they wanted to pay for. And while the mill rate came down, what most people don't realize is that most places, especially apartment buildings, got about a 25 to 30% increase into their taxes. Because when the counselors all sat there and said, well, no, single family homes only went up, 24 to 30%. But the problem is multifamilies and apartment buildings went up, some of them went up 50 to 60%. In fact, hell, I've seen some that went 100 to 120%. And I'm on the Board of Assessment Appeals, so I saw these cases come forward. And I rang the bell as hard as I could that this is what's going to happen. I said the perfect storm is here. And it's not only going to affect the homeowners, it's mostly going to affect the renters. But historically, renters don't care about what taxes are. They don't care. And it is coming to bite a lot of renters in the ass. And while I sit there and I have sympathy for them, these are probably the same people that vote the same way because they're not informed of what's going on. It is the truth. I know the truth hurts sometimes. And I know a lot of people don't want to offend other people. But your ignorance and uninformed use of the internet has brought you to write this post. This post was only written because you're not informed. It's the only reason. And I hate to be harsh, but it's the truth. It's truth. If people on Meriden Talks would just spend less time bitching about stupid things and actually had these kind of discussions on things that actually freaking matter. Listen, Meriden Talks back in 2014 when I first found it, when I first saw it, it used to be a great page. 2014, 2015, we used to have substantial conversations about things going on in the city. That's what I loved about Meriden Talks. Then somewhere over the last 5 or 6 years, it's turned into a big bitching session with people who have no idea what they're talking about. And you took a great page and you allowed it to turn into a friggin' soap opera. Into a bunch of drama queens. I would love Meriden. I would love Meriden Talks to get back to its roots. Would love it. You have over 17,000 people, and you people are bitching every day. Are you kidding me? You have an opportunity to reach each other. Instead, we want to have drama after drama or talk about things like this that you should have known about. Because again, we've been talking about it for months. I think the Meriden Talk admins really need to take a step back, reevaluate their page, because you have an opportunity. You have 17,000 people on the page. I would say 16.8 thousand of them are not informed on what's going on in the city. And look at that base that you have to reach. You have an opportunity to reach them, to educate them. And I hope you do. And then you got, of course, then you got Positively Meriden, which we'll get into in a second. But just to go back to this. This is not the end. This is not the end. This is only the beginning. This is just one part of the perfect storm in the overall tax base. Because most people, like most read in the comments, I read most of the comments. Listen, these people, they're not going to be able to rent these apartments. Even on Section 8. They're not fully paid for on Section 8. They still got to pay a percentage. And even these percentages are just too high. So this is not the end. This is just the beginning of it. Because like I said, this is a multi-stage incident that's going to be happening here. The first was the reassessment. Now the taxes are going out. And now the landlords who have to cover their mortgages and make a little bit of money have to raise the rents. And people are not going to be able to afford it. And what the prices they're going to have to ask, I think she said it best. They're not worth it. You're going to go somewhere else. So now you're going to have all these apartments left open. And now landlords aren't going to be able to pay their rents. Landlords are not going to be able to pay their mortgages. They're not going to be able to pay their taxes. And you're going to see foreclosures. Guaranteed. That's going to be in another 6 months to a year. We're going to be sitting here again talking about how foreclosures are on the rise in the city of Meriden. That is going to happen. It is going to happen. And then you're going to see the city have to raise taxes even more to cover for the failed taxes that weren't paid. This is going to be a financial tsunami coming to the city of Meriden over the next 2 years. Anyone that knows anything about economics saw this from a mile away. Anyone who knows anything about real estate is seeing this from a mile away. Not to mention that inflation's at a 40-year high and that the feds are raising interest rates a full point, 3/4 of a point. We're not done yet. It's going to go up at least another 1/2 point to 3/4 of a point again over the next 2 months to try to limit the inflation or get inflation under control. Now, what does that mean? Again, because most people don't even understand what that means when interest rates go up. That means mortgages are more expensive. That's why you're seeing a slow in the housing market. You're going to see credit cards. Credit card percentages are going to go through the roof. It's going to be harder to get money. You're not going to get loans from the bank. You're just not even for a business. Because no one's going to pay those, and most people aren't going to be able to pay those astronomical fees. That's why it's called a recession that we're in. No matter what the White House tells you. We are in a recession, which is why gas prices are coming down. Remember, we talked about this too multiple times. When you look at oil prices, it is on a 90-day future. Your oil price right now is set based on what's going to happen in 90 days. Now, we're in a recession. Short-term effects of that is that oil and gas come down because there's not going to be a demand for it in 90 days. Now, and I tell people this all the time, get oil. If you heat your home with oil, next week and the week after is going to be the time you need to purchase oil. Right there. Fill her up. Oh, look at that. I didn't have to put this down for a second. Fill her up. Trust me, I own the company. I know. I can tell you what oil is going to do. Very well versed in what fuel is doing. If you heat your home with oil and you're not, and of course you're not on state assistance, this is the time to buy your oil. Because come September, it's going through the roof again. Because the demand in October, November, December is going to go through the roof. So pay attention. I'm giving you a fair warning. This is only the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm also not going to blow smoke up your ass. We have to be able to accept the truth on face value. And that is it. So, The other good, I want to get into, I'm going to wait till later to do positively merited, because if we have time, it's already 7:47, and I still have 2, 4, 6, 8 different things we need to talk about. So this might run a little long, I think, and I apologize. But it is very important, because Tuesday is primary day. And primary day is very good about, primary day is a very good indication on where your party is heading. And for Republicans, we are either going to go moderate or we're going to go conservative. And I think the big race for the Republicans, obviously, is the U.S. Senate. And if anyone did not know, listen, love him or hate him, President Trump has a lot of political weight. Every former president does. Barack Obama has a lot of weight. Well, I guess that's not really necessarily true, because a lot of the people that he backed got beat up pretty good because he's a hard leftist. So I guess that theory really doesn't work, huh? Interesting. But President Trump does have a lot of clout in the Republican Party. And for good reason. Listen, love him or hate him for what he says on social media or when he's in his rallies. Again, to me, I would love to just take his phone and throw it away. But listen, he likes to talk directly to the American people, just like Ronald Reagan did. Which is why, again, even with Ronald Reagan, both sides didn't like him at first. Now, obviously, we live in a world today of digital media where, the media does disinformation and, likes to just throw stupid things around, like the whole Russia hoax and everything, all that kind of stuff, the collusion, which, of course, was never true. And come to find out that the only ones that were in bed with Russia was Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. If you look, again, always follow the money. And there you go. Well, Donald Trump decided to endorse Laura Levy. Now, Laura Levy is one of the two conservatives that are up for election on primary day. You have obviously Themis, you have Levy, and you have Lamage. Now, to me, I think the backing of Levy, who both Levy and Lamage both like Donald Trump, should tell Peter it's time for him to back off and put this up to a two-person race. Because it's important to do that, because you're going to have Levy and Lamage splitting the conservative vote while letting the rhinos, the moderates, and the fake Republicans to pick Themis and to get her over the top. Now, there have been a lot of polls that have been done over the last couple of months, and a lot of the polls have shown that this race is competitive nationwide. So Dick Blumenthal, the guy that served in Vietnam, that guy, in case you're wondering, served in Vietnam was a lie. He never did go to Vietnam, but he said he did. So, I don't know how any veteran still votes for that guy, but stolen valor is probably the absolute worst thing you could ever do as a veteran to a veteran. He can be beat. His disapproval numbers are so high that it allows a Republican an opportunity to win this race. Now, if you go with Themis, you're going to lose the base. And no matter how many people tell you that, well, you don't need the base, you just need the independents, that's a lie. You cannot win without the base of your party. And when you have someone who's anti-gun, pro-choice, which I'll get into it maybe if we have time, because I met with a couple of pro-lifers, and apparently I'm not pro-life, even though I consider myself pro-life, but apparently I'm not. We'll get into that maybe this week or maybe next week if we have time. She's anti-gun, and she's totally for gun control, which is a huge concern. So there's your base. There's your base of the whole Republican Party. And to throw that away because you think that she's more electable is a fallacy. You have to have the base in order to get the independents. That's why Laura Levy, I believe, is the best choice. And she did, yes, Craig, we just talked about that. She did get the Trump endorsement. Trump and his American First policies got our country moving in the right direction faster than anybody else. That's a fact. Donald Trump, in 4 years, got more positive things done for America than presidents of 8 years. While dealing with 2 impeachment trials. 2. In a constant barrage from the fake news media, CNN, MSNBC, take your pick. I always say, when both sides are coming at you, because remember, there are a lot of Republicans that do not like Donald Trump. Themis is one of them. She didn't vote for him. When you have both sides coming at you, you know you're on the right path. Trust me, I have Republicans coming after me for the things I do, for the things I say, the whole Board of Ed thing, whether it's the city council thing. I have Republicans coming at me all the time. I have Republicans that won't even endorse my candidacy for state senate. And that's fine. That's great. I don't care. Because at the end of the day, it's not about party. It's about the people. And when you put party before people, you are now part of the problem. I don't care about the parties. I care about what you're doing as an individual. I am a conservative, therefore I am a Republican. But my allegiances are to the people, not the party. That is a fact. It is something I've always lived by. And I will always continue to live by. It was such a crazy election year. They voted against Trump, not for Biden. That is probably, well, on the left, that is true. That is true. I still don't see how 81 million people voted for Biden. And that's more than that voted for Barack Obama. I don't get it. But again, I'm not going to relive 2020. That makes it serves no purpose for any of us. Like I said, for all those people that think, oh, this last election was stolen, there you go, No, listen. We have a rule of law. We have a process. Anyone who knows me knows I love the process. He had a process. They failed to do it. I think the Trump lawyers were a joke. I think they did a horrible job at presenting a case, and you know what? That's what you got. So we move on. We take our loss and we move on. But to me, like I said, I think Biden is the best and worst thing to ever happen to America. And most people get confused when I say that. So here's how I look at it. Why Joe Biden is the best and the worst thing that ever happened for America. Okay. So we had a businessman in office that put the country in the right direction. Now we have a politician back in office, and look where it's getting us. Look where it's got us. Reckless spending even more. Again, I wasn't for the trillions of dollars that Donald Trump spent either. But reckless spending, especially now. Man, we talked about last week about that inflation control bill that does nothing to control inflation, but it actually increases inflation because we're spending more money. That passed the Senate 50-50. And then the Vice President Harris broke the tie. That's the kind of government we have going on right now. It's absolutely crazy. So to me, it's just absolute craziness. It's already 8:00 here. We already talked about the whole polls with Blumenthal. I think so we'll skip that. We'll have to drive into that next week. Listen, we talked about the pension debt. We talked about the pension debt about 2 weeks ago. And we were talking about how Connecticut is depositing $4.1 billion into its pension funds. Now, we also know that our pension funds have a grown debt of $41 billion. And this goes to the state teachers and the state employees. Now, as independent review have been done of this, and it shows that we are 14.8% of personal income, 14.8% of Connecticut's personal income at the time, more than doubles the national average of 6.8. Connecticut is ranked eighth worst for funding their pension. Now, I'm going to give credit that since 2010, we have fully funded our pension at a state level. Now, the problem that we're having is that we have refinanced that debt twice. Does anyone knows what happens when you refinance? Usually you extend it out, which means you add more interest. So we've basically shifted billions of dollars in debt and interest to the taxpayers in between the 2030 and 2050. So basically all they've been doing is kicking the can down the road. Now, that's what a lot of state politicians love to do. We look at gas taxes. Gas taxes were put into place to go into the Special Transportation Fund. That's meant to be used to fix our roads and bridges. Obviously, most people know what our roads and bridges look like, because that money has not been going to the Special Transportation Fund. But our friends on the other side, the Democrats, have been moving it over to the general fund to pay for all their gifts to their voters and to their cities that are kind to them. That's what's been going on. The article also goes on to say that $4.1 billion in increased tax revenue, which means it came from you, the taxpayer. We have given this state $4.1 billion in extra money that they didn't need. And they are keeping instead of giving it back to you. And for anyone who says, oh, no, they're giving it to all these other, there's $600 million for this, $400 million for that. Nonsense. Those are payoffs to certain groups of people, mostly that are loyal Democrats, going to cities that vote heavily Democrat. That money is your money. You paid that due to inflation, due to the rise in everything you buy. That money deserves to come back to you. And as I said it here many a times, lowering the sales tax is the fastest and the easiest way to get the money back into everybody's pockets quickly. because the less you pay in taxes, the more it goes back into your pocket. But let's see what else we got. I'm trying to zip through these things because it's already 8 o'clock. All right. Well, I want to talk about this Meriden thing because I thought it was interesting, and when I find things that are interesting, I like to know what they are. Okay, so this is what I found on Positively Meriden today, because I like to scroll through and I wait for things to catch my eye, and I saw this, and it said, and the person who posted it asked if these things actually work. And I did not know this, and I think this is a very interesting question. So this one is on the corner of Columbus and Highland, and the person that posted it asked if they actually do work. And I thank a couple people that mentioned it in the things. I'll name Dan Costa. I went and actually looked at the Meriden Fire Local 1148 page, so thank you for the input on that. But this is obvious. This is apparently a game well system that's put throughout the city. And when you open and activate one of these boxes, it actually rings in all the firehouses in the city, including the dispatch center. Now, to me, this is pretty cool. Now, my other question is, how many false alarms do they get out of these things? Do people actually pull these things, or do they know they actually work? So, I mean, maybe someone at the fire department can let me know about that. Do we get a lot of false alarms out of these? And are they positioned in where they are for a reason? Is it like high areas of fire or whatever? I have so many questions regarding this box now. It blows my mind. I'm going to have to start reaching out to all my fire department friends and finding out more about this system. I need to know. I'm fascinated by it because I thought this stuff was like that of the past. You know, I know we see the blue the blue lights now for the police department, but this is just fascinating to me, and I can't wait to learn more about it. And I'm gonna bring it more to you guys in the coming weeks. So, Angel, thank you for posting that. You definitely got me thinking throughout the day here on it. And I'm going to find out more on it. Yeah, the call boxes, they're pretty cool. All right. So, you know what? We're going to leave it there because no, we're going to do a couple more. Because I always listen, one of my favorite things to do during the week is read the reader's opinions in the Record Journal. I don't know why, because most of the time I take it as a, to me, it's laughable when I read them, because obviously these people have absolutely no idea. Either they don't have any idea what they're talking about, or they live in some kind of friggin' fantasy world. And here's the first one. And it says, editor, I asked my fellow voters to support candidates who share our concerns and values. The Democratic team of a bunch of people. At the U.S. Capitol and our state capitol, throughout history and today, Democrats successfully work to better our lives. I ask you this. You look at your life right now. Are they really said that to better our lives? You're living better today? I don't think so. You're living much better under Republican. Republicans fought progress. Nationally, we have the minimum wage, Social Security, and Medicare, and more recently, the effective pandemic response. First of all, that's a friggin' joke to begin with. The pandemic response. Pandemic response, you got to be out of your friggin' mind. Maybe here in the city we did okay. That's even a stretch for me. And the minimum wage? Listen, it went up to $15 an hour. It went up 5%. Inflation went up 9%. That's building back better? That's something to be excited about? Social Security. Social Security hasn't gone up. These people are living on fixed incomes. And look what the city of Meriden did to them. Look what the state's doing to them. Really? You had the nerve to sit there and say you successfully worked to better their lives? You are detached from reality, Ms. Gallagher. Detached from reality. And the American Rescue Plan. Because Democrats overcame Republican obstruction. No, we were trying to save this friggin' country. In Connecticut, just this past year, Democrats forged a balanced budget that provides $600 million in tax cuts. To who? It ain't to the middle class. The largest in state history. What she fails to tell you is that state Democrats also gave you the two biggest tax increases in the last 5 years. But let's not mention that. $600 million in tax cuts to their voters, to their cities. Are you kidding me? The largest in state history. Let's not talk about the billions of tax increases you have done over the last 5 years. That's what Democrats have done for you. In the extension of the gas tax holiday, which is a joke all the way around. All the way around, on both sides. That is simply an election year gimmick that is doing nothing for the average family. Because let me guarantee you this, people. You are not getting a gas tax holiday. I am sorry you said that. An increased property tax credit. Again, to who? And a new child tax credit for families. No, not for families. Those aren't for families. Well, technically they're families because they have kids and they have a single parent household. That's about it. Because if you're halfway decent off, you're not getting it. So let's not blow smoke up people's asses. Democrats made essential investments in workforce development. That's funny because nobody's working. Child care services, K through 12, and special education. So you got federal money to boost some of these programs, and you're going to take credit for it? Interesting. And environmental preservation. Environmental preservation, you guys just spent $740 billion on far left giveaways. Far left giveaways. And you're going to call that progress? You just put the American people in more debt. That's all you did. The Republican playbook remains phony promises and blind naysaying. No, it's not blind. We actually state why we're against you. Democrats, when they're against you, they just try to attack you personally because they don't have a leg to stand on. When we go on the attack for crazy crap like this, we state specific reasons why we're against it. For real progress, based on genuine record of accomplishments, vote the Democratic ticket. First of all, show me where genuine records of accomplishments are. Because I don't see them. Unless your record of accomplishments means putting us more in debt, putting us more into the pockets of special interest groups, then yeah, you scored a home run. And then my favorite person. I gotta say, this is my favorite liberal. The next one is my favorite liberal. I absolutely love reading him. I saw him today at the Puerto Rican festival, and I did say hello, and he just smiles at me like I'm some kind of, you know what, and keeps on walking. But my friend Jeffrey Frazier. I gotta say, I love listening to him when he goes to the city council meetings, and I love when he writes things. And I love how he always starts them. My Republican friends must choose. First of all, you have no Republican friends. Let's just put that out there right now. You do not like Republicans at all. So, right off the bat, let's get our boots on because there's some bullshit coming. They can restore their party, like he cares, to his former honor. Okay. to continue to follow Donald Trump down into his cesspool of lies, hate mongering, and insurrection. Sadly, local Republican leaderships appear to stay faithful to the disgraced ex-president. He's not disgraced in any way other than in the eyes of Democrats. And even in some Democrats, he's not. Because even Democrats realize when you're full of crap. As evidenced by current nominees. Okay, well, hey, if we're for things that work, I guess you could put me on the Trump side. We must reject candidates who remain obsessed with a far-right, disproven belief system. Or really, that should be like, we as Democrats must reject candidates who remain obsessed to common sense and have proven to show us how full of crap we are. That's what that really should have read. Fortunately, there are several excellent candidates who deserve our support. Yeah, okay. And we'll go. I love this one. Let's just read this whole thing because I think this one's interesting. Fortunately, we have several excellent candidates who deserve our support. Democrat Jan Hochschild is an educator who has worked passionately for the interests of children, families, and working people. Now, let's talk about that for a second. Actually, let me finish reading that paragraph. Her colleagues selected her to lead the American Federation of Teachers here in Connecticut. She's running for state senate in the 13th. Let's talk about that. One, anyone who belongs in a union knows that most of the union members feel exactly like those that I talked to at the Puerto Rican Festival today. Most people who are in a union, trust me, I was in a union before, and I used to have the fights with leadership all the time. Because anyone who knows that the top leadership of the union usually doesn't care about the people that they're supposed to be serving. That's just a fact. And it's usually a fact that the lower people in the union don't usually like the leaders of the membership of the leadership. And I think that's a fact here too, because if you look at her filings came from a lot of outside ATF members that were presidents of certain groups. But there's one thing it did lack. A lot of teachers. Now, if you go over to my filing, what you will find is a lot of teachers that have supported us. So do they really think she's that great? Not only, but she's also highly against a lot of nonprofits, which you think as a liberal she'd be all for. Because in her own words, she wants nonprofits to be taxed. It's something we talk about on this show all the time, how we fought against it. But she has no problem with nonprofits being taxed because they're not unionized. Very interesting. And we'll get into some of that stuff in the weeks to come. Their impressive records of constituent service and legislative achievement surely have earned them new terms representing us. Name me one Democrat in this city on a state level that has an impressive record on constituent service. Well, okay, Hilda is probably the most, for me, Hilda is probably the most personable one out of all of them. Hilda Santiago. I'll give her that. I mean, she's well liked. I can see why. She's very personal. She's almost like that mother you never had, or she just comes apart. She just comes across as that, and it's admirable. So I'll give her that credit. But to sit there and say that they have legislative achievements is a joke to me. By voting these Democrat candidates, we are getting the best for ourselves, our families, and our communities. Yeah, are we? Because remember, these people have held office for 30 years. Democrats have held the state offices for 30 years. You're trying to tell them we're better off? We are demanding a standard of integrity and positive vision in our politics. And we are just sending a message to a party still led by Donald Trump that it must rehabilitate itself. Well, first of all, Mr. Frazier, thank you, sir. Maybe I will see the light someday and I will come and I will see exactly what you're talking about. But unfortunately for me, I still think you're full of you know what, as you always are. So, but to me, I do love reading those because I think they're hilarious. I don't know. I just don't know what reality these guys are living in. It's just not anything that we're seeing in the reality in the world we see today. We did have an extended version tonight. I apologize. We just had a lot of stuff to talk about. Guys, remember, Tuesday is primary day. Make sure you go out there and vote. If you're a Democrat, you obviously have a lot of things going on. You got the treasurer, you got controller, you got secretary of state. You got all competitive races there, so make sure you go out and vote if you're a Democrat. If you're a Republican, obviously you have the U.S. Senate. You have Secretary of State, which are really the two big ones. So make sure you go out there and vote that way too. Make your voices heard. The only way your voice doesn't get heard is if you don't vote. I get it that you may feel that nobody's listening, but I guarantee you there are people listening. And I'm just asking you to take that leap of faith and go out there this year and vote. And let's try to make a real difference. And it starts on Tuesday. Whether you're voting for a moderate, whether you're voting for a conservative, doesn't matter. Go vote and make your voice heard. Again, I thank everybody for joining us tonight. It's always an absolute pleasure being here, even with the extended version. I love each and every one of you. I thank you again for being here. And if you're new to the show, I hope you come back. We always have a lot to talk about. Again, I hope you guys start calling in. My voice starts going a little coarse after an hour and a half of sitting here jabbing away. But I absolutely love doing it with you guys each and every week. So, but until next week, I love you guys. I will see you guys next week. God bless you. And of course, God bless this amazing country of ours. Bob, thank you for being new and thank you for listening. Until next week, everybody, I will see you later.
And the million faces formed together, made for elevation. And the soldier won't surrender. Faith is like a fire that never burns to embers. The voice of the unheard. Love is the answer.
I gotta speak it, believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath when you pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise, oh, heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise, oh, heart is beating faster, feels like thunder, magic, static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise, oh, it's our resistance, you can't resist us. Can you hear me? Are you listening, sleeping, and the shadows could be making